Welcome to another episode of Follow the Brand TV. I am your host, Grant McGaugh, CEO of 5-Star BDM, a 5-star personal brand and business development company. I want to take you on a journey through another deep dive into the world of personal branding and business development using compelling personal stories, business conversations, and tips to improve your brand. By listening to the Follow the Brand TV series, you will differentiate yourself from the competition and build trust with prospective clients and employers. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Make it one that will set you apart, build confidence, and reflect who you are. Building your 5-star personal brand is a great way to improve your skills and knowledge. If you have any questions for me or any of my guests, please email me at grant.mcgaugh@5starbdm.com. Now, let's begin with our next episode on the Follow the Brand TV.
Five-Star BDM, Brand Development Masters, is a professional consulting and advisory group keenly focused on business development services for the small to mid-sized business and entrepreneurs. Although every business is unique, they often share business development challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. Services include process improvement and operations, digital strategy and transformation, business intelligence, digital marketing, and personal branding. Our business and personal branding company has helped a number of professionals and organizations to optimize and grow. This results in more business, more opportunities, better reach, positive outcomes. Visit www.5starbdm.com today to learn more.
And I do work in brand strategy, and Shalini works in ethics and corporate social responsibility. And we found this sweet spot where we can talk about brand transgressions because it relates to brand strategy and it has some serious ethical implications and undertones.
The usual thing that companies tend to do is to deflect, to obfuscate, to lay blame on somebody else, to cover facts. And what we propose, the first thing a company should do is to take accountability.
Nike had a campaign of this sort, which was potentially polarizing, led to increased sales, increased profits, and increased market share.
And the other range, increasingly I'm finding, is that students actually appreciate this discussion. They want it earlier on in the degree. They would like it incorporated in almost, every course, so that they can think not only of ethics and social responsibility in my course, but in marketing, in accounting, in finance, in IT, in operations, because this applies everywhere.
Welcome, everybody, to the Follow Brand Podcast. This is Grant McGaugh, and I get to go to my favorite place, one of my favorite places. I used to go to Seattle, like, all the time, especially when I worked at this previous company, and I was out in Seattle, loved the Northwest, and then I got a chance then talk to two individuals who live out in Tacoma, Washington, and we had to have this conversation. And he just told me, no, we're going to talk about brand transgression. That's what this is all about. But he just gave me some news that I'm shocked about. Is that you go to Seattle and everyone knows this one spot. You go to this place called Pike, and Pike has they throw the fish. Everybody knows this, right? You throw the fish. Everybody's like, wow, you got to go there. He just told me that they kind of stopped that. Boo! So before I go any further, I want to introduce you to the Jains, right? So we've got Shelly Jain, and we've got Shalini Jain. You're going to correct me if I did that wrong, but you're going to help me with that. I want you both to introduce yourselves, and we're going to have a candid conversations about, I think, two words that not a lot of people understand: brand transgressions and what that is all about. So, Shelly, you like to go first?
Okay, I'm going first. Yeah, thank you, Grant, for having us on this podcast. Really, really honored and excited to be here. So I'm a professor of marketing and international business at the University of Washington at Foster's School of Business in Seattle. And I've been in academia now for about 30 years after I did my PhD. And I do work in consumer psychology and brand strategy. And I teach MBAs for the most part, executive MBAs and daytime and part-time MBAs. And before I did my PhD, I worked for 6 years in industry doing sales, brand management, and general management and advertising strategy. Before that, I got an MBA in India. Before that, I got an engineering degree. So life has been really amazing. We are very blessed and grateful that we are here. Over to you, Shalini. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. So I'm Shalini Jain. I am an associate professor of management at the Milgard School of Business, University of Washington in Tacoma. And my research is primarily in the areas of ethics, social responsibility, gender equality, and things like that. I teach MBAs and undergraduates, and this book is entirely about what I teach my students. And so I'm very excited to talk about this book on brand transgressions.
Well, let's jump right in, because you just hit it on the head. I mean, first we've got two educators here, and you're academics, and I love the University of Washington. It's just beautiful. The Huskies and the whole nine. So I'm a little biased, probably tell I love the Northwest. I want to know about brand transgressions and why this is so important and what people need to understand. I just gave a little scenario about what's going on at Pike. But talk to us about brand transgressions and what led you to write this book.
So yeah, go. You, Shalini, you want to go?
Go ahead.
Okay, so what led us to write this book was, to be perfectly honest, it was partly COVID, because we were quarantined at home and we were working, but we said, let's do something which is creating value for our planet. And I do work in brand strategy, and Shalini works in ethics and corporate social responsibility. And we found this sweet spot where we can talk about brand transgressions because it relates to brand strategy and it has some serious ethical implications and undertones. But I do some research also in brand transgressions as an academic. So it was a really fortuitous confluence of our research interests, our experience and passion, and so on and so forth. So brand transgressions, as we define, and we are not the only ones who've defined it, are basically violations of certain norms or expectations that stakeholders have of brands. So the reason why we think it's an important topic, just to exemplify what a brand transgression is, Grant, right as we are speaking, there is a huge corporation which is based in Seattle and Chicago called Boeing, which is going through a very, very, very serious turbulence in its existence. And it started in 2018 and 19 when the two 737 aircraft crashed. And thereafter, it has been one problem after the other for the company. Of course, this is an extreme kind of a transgression where people died. And our conversation before you started recording, specific to the cybersecurity issue, sometimes companies don't expect bad things to happen, and they happen inadvertently. As we are learning in Boeing's case, it was not inadvertent in the sense that there were certain compromises and decision-making gaps that existed in the company's process, which led to these outcomes, which we'll be happy to talk about in a bit. So that's the nature of brand transgressions. In Europe, you might have heard of Volkswagen, the emissions cheating scandal. That was a volitional transgression. Volkswagen knew about it, what they were doing. And then closer home, there is Wells Fargo cross-selling scandal. And 3-4 years back, Starbucks had a racial profiling incident in Philadelphia, which created a huge amount of uproar and rage. And then, the Me Too movement that we are talking about is a personal brand transgression, where a series of people are being called out for sexual misconduct. So that's really the nature of the problem that we are investigating and how we came together. Okay, that's it.
I think that's important because I know social impact and then getting into where brands are today, some successful brands, like they stand for something. You stand for something. It's just not me purchasing a product or service. I'm actually purchasing or investing in an idea. And these things are important. I want to ask Miss Shalini Jain, when this happens, you get a transgression, something has tarnished your brand, something has happened. What are some of the first steps that company can do to try to mitigate some of these problems?
So that's a great question. And so let's take the example of CrowdStrike, right? We talked about a potential 20 to 40% drop in stock. We have different reports from different sources. They say Fortune 500 companies have suffered losses estimated at about $5 billion. So this is a transgression which is fairly staggering, from any perspective. And so what's the first thing a company can do? The usual thing that companies tend to do is to deflect, to obfuscate, to lay blame on somebody else, to cover facts. And what we propose, the first thing a company should do is to take accountability, which is to do, actually, that's the second thing. The first thing is to do the right thing. And what is the right thing here? So one can talk about the 40% drop in stock market price, or one can talk about the $5 billion loss of their clients. So it's understandable that the company would like to protect itself, but doing the right thing means to focus first on the victim or the customer.
This is so important.
So important. And a kind of a gold standard in the course of our research, which everybody is familiar with, is the example of Tylenol, right? When some miscreant put in cyanide laced, replaced Tylenol, and people died. And nobody knew what was the source, but what did Tylenol do? How do we protect the people? That was the first question. And the second question was, how do we protect our brand? So even though they didn't know what happened, they went on the media in a very unprecedented fashion, where the CEO repeatedly appeared and made announcements. This has happened. Please don't consume Tylenol. They stopped advertising. They even withdrew, took Tylenol off the shelves. And this was a very, it was standard setting at that time. And so I think, so when I was looking at the coverage on CrowdStrike, the CEO did come out and take accountability. He did the right thing. He said, yes, this was a mistake that has been done on our part. And so that was the first thing. Then the second step, or a second principle that we talk about, is to take accountability, right? Yes. So it's very easy to say, oh, Microsoft, some other partner, some vendor, some supplier, they were responsible. But ultimately, it's your company, and whoever you associate with, we have to take ownership for that. So Shelley mentioned Volkswagen. So they actually blame the whole world except themselves. And it was a few rogue engineers, and it was, nobody took ownership. But here, actually, I was reading in the media that not only the CEO, but the top executives of CrowdStrike, particularly the chief security officer, went all out in media and publicly, proactively acknowledged that this transgression has taken place.
The way to brand is, and it's a leadership conversation. It's not a marketing thing. And ultimately, it starts with, what is your purpose? So I'm very much a humanist. I cut through the bullshit, and I'm about branding by using language that excites and engages people. Branding's about people. And so I call myself the brand guy for that exact reason, to kind of take it off its pedestal and to make it something that's real and accessible and understandable and relatable by everybody.
Branding has got to play a key role here, because if you have an enormous effort, it consists of grants, volunteering, energy goals, ESG reports. All that is impossible to communicate. And so what you need is branded signature programs, and to carry the flag, to communicate what you do, to inspire, to guide. There's another brand involved. You got to use these signature brands to enhance the business by building the business brand, by giving it an energy lift, an image lift, and an engagement lift. And when you do that, the business now can view your program, whether it's internal or external. You can move your program as a partner, something that doesn't have to justify its funding each year, something that's really going to become part of your business strategy, and therefore it will grow and thrive and be more healthy in a long term.
I listen to that, and I'm put myself in the shoes of the CEO or even in the C-suite of the companies that have these kinds of things happen. And I want to ask this to Shelly, because if I'm sitting there, I'm that CEO, I'm that board, I got stockholders, and that I just had a 50, 60% drop in stock, $5 billion. First I got to pick myself up off the floor, because this is like really falling off of a cliff. This is falling off a cliff. You've got a beautiful brand, you got a beautiful product. No one saw this coming. Bam, just like that, lightning strikes. You lose $5 billion. Now you got to get out in front of this. What are some strategies that you can speak to help organizations that have these unprecedented issues occur, and best practices in that area?
Thank you, Grant. Yeah, so these things are, the event that we're talking about are extremely rare, but they are devastating if they're not handled carefully. So as Shalini mentioned, the first thing that the senior leadership has already done is to take full accountability and responsibility for the problem in public, in the media, because this is the way they absolve the users from creating an alternative narrative. That's very, very important, right? And so they said, yes, we were at fault, we apologize, and they've done it multiple times. So let me share with you the story of Starbucks, Grant, which happened in Philadelphia, which is not as, in some ways, as devastating as outage and economies being up for grabs kind of stuff, or stock price falling by $5-10 billion. But it is still a pretty serious situation. In 2019, there were 2 young Black customers in Philadelphia who did not place an order for coffee for a very, very long time. And the barista came to them 2-3 times and said, will you please place an order? Will you please place an order? And they said, we are waiting for another associate. After some time, the barista called the cops on them. And it was 2 people, it was 2 customers, it was in a small Philadelphia outlet. Some people would have said, come on, what's the big deal, kind of sort of. But the way Starbucks CEO Kevin Johnson responded is what we documented in the book, which is a modern day gold template in our opinion. So as soon as this happened, as soon as Kevin Johnson learned about it, between that day and 2 more days, he apologized 6 times, including on Facebook, including on TV, on company's website, again and again and again, he apologized. Next day, he flew to Philadelphia. Next day, he flew to Philadelphia and he met these 2 young men. These men were 24, 25 years old, And so he met them personally, he apologized to them. And then in terms of taking accountability, he absolved the barista. He said, the buck stops with me. I think this was a real mature way to handle the situation. It was easy for the CEO to say, oh, the barista didn't do right. We'll take care of it and fire the barista or something of that sort. I think the company showed its character and integrity when the CEO said, I'm responsible. Then he settled privately with the 2 customers. He spoke to the community in Philadelphia, which was really raging because of the situation. Then I think what they did was just terrific. They closed down all their 8,000 plus outlets for diversity and equity training at a cost of something like $16-17 million for a week. So this example tells us what it means to do the right thing, which is if the customers are hurt, they are feeling victimized, take care of them. Their hurt is important rather than your pain as a brand, number 1. Number 2, act with lightning speed, which he did. Number 3, take accountability, which he did. Number 4, do restitution in some form or the other, which he did. At the end of the day, the whole brand was transformed. It didn't just recover, it became a better brand. So coming back to your example, we think the company has started right by apologizing to all its customers who have been victimized by this unintended transgression. So they have taken accountability, they have taken ownership. Now we think it's an opportunity for the company to transform the organization fundamentally and create even more guardrails, probably, take a leap in terms of security management, which this company didn't imagine was possible. So this is an opportunity where the company can convert this problem into a huge opportunity.
I think you're right. And it's a great textbook lesson of what you can do. Communication is key, getting out in front of this. I think Shalini also mentioned that. I want to ask her, you wrote this book together, right? Right. So you mentioned 8 principles. Like if you follow these 8 principles, you're going to be out in front of some of these situations, because as everyone knows, it takes years to build your brand. And this is your reputation in the market. And you've built it up, you significant amount of money and resources are into it. But yet, just like we just learned, in a moment's notice, your brand could be tarnished and it can explode. And it could take years again to rebuild that trust, as you talked about with Tylenol. People probably don't remember that happened. I know it happened with some ice cream manufacturers as well. There was tainted ice cream, and you hear about these things from time to time, but it takes time to reestablish that brand. So talk to us a little bit about these 8 principles that a lot of our audience, my audience, can pay attention to and apply.
So we've mentioned, about 3 of them. So our first principle is about doing the right thing. The second principle is about taking accountability, right? The third is to act with lightning speed. So we are in an age of digital democracy, and minutes matter. So if Boeing, for example, took a month to apologize, that is, in this day and age, a pretty, a transgression on a transgression, if I may say so, right? So then communication you mentioned, to do that transparently, often, frequently, on multiple channels is a very important thing to keep, because that demonstrates a commitment to keep all stakeholders informed, right? And at the bottom of all of this, what we found in our research is that the reasons brands that transgress are unable to transform are because they tend to place profit over principle. And that, it's a very tough call, because see, we are in business to make profit. But, there's a lot of research out there that the Gen Z and, young customers, 90% of them don't buy from brands that don't demonstrate value or have social impact. They are also future workforce for all of these corporations, and they are actively choosing not to work for corporations without conscience. And they have huge spending power. And so these are customers that cannot be ignored by any business. So placing principle over profit is, our 5th. Then the 6th one, which is probably related more to individuals, but I think applies even to companies. It is like treating each life with dignity, which we saw in the case of Starbucks. They were 2 youths, but they were treated with dignity. And we have innumerable examples of where that hasn't happened. For example, the United Airlines case, where a passenger was bloodied and taken off the aircraft with a broken jaw so that his fully paid seat could be given to a crew member. And then that was actually defended by United Airlines as the appropriate thing to do. And then later, when they saw that stock price fall through the floor, is when they regrouped and said, oh, this was, so treating each life with dignity is a very key factor for brand to maintain the reputation that they themselves have so painstakingly built over time. And then, as we have been talking, leadership sets the tone.
Yeah.
So if we are expecting frontline or middle managers to do the right thing, that's not going to happen. It has to begin from the top, because that's from where it trickles down all the way. And the last that kind of wraps all of this up is building brand authenticity, right? Which means walking the talk, not only when you transgress, but just part of standard business practice, where all of these principles are incorporated in standard business operations.
Branding. Let's start with branding. You're a brander, right?
Yes.
This is, putting that iron stamp on the cattle so people know it's you. That's your cow, right?
Yeah.
Once that's done, you have to create broad awareness for that brand. And I mean broad awareness in terms of publicizing your good works, making yourself well known, having people have good relations and liking your brand, and changing the way people think about your products and services. I am the anti-PR Chief Strategist and Evangelist for Johto PR. Disruptors. We deal with disruptive, innovative tech companies to help them increase their share of voice, educate, become more creditable, and be able to compete against the behemoths, that they have better technology and are more agile and a better cost for their clients. And it gives them that voice to be able to prove that so people trust them before they buy.
Grant McGaw, CEO of 5-Star BDM, is turning heads in the healthcare and information technology sectors with his groundbreaking approach to personal branding and business development. By challenging conventional strategies, he's setting a new standard for how executives present themselves and their businesses to the world. McGaw's expertise isn't just about standing out. It's about strategic guidance, generating leads, and building networks that propel executives beyond their competition. His focus on authenticity allows leaders to leverage their unique stories, driving exponential growth and success in their industries. Beyond branding, McGaw is a fervent advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. He's committed to helping organizations cultivate environments where innovation and collaboration thrive through inclusive cultures. And for those eager to dive deeper, McGaw hosts the Follow the Brand podcast. Here, he unpacks the intricacies of personal branding and business growth, offering valuable insights for professionals eager to redefine their identities and share their narratives with the world.
Follow the Brand TV broadcast host, Grant McGaw, as he visits with top executives and entrepreneurs to find out their secrets of success with their personal brand. Follow the Brand TV broadcast host as he focuses on brand development to build better relationships, bring value to your business, relationships, and career. You will enjoy listening to each episode that is tailored to speak to you directly. If you're looking for this type of clarity in terms of building your brand, you have tuned into the right station. Each episode will help you to shape a conversation in the 5-Star BDM network of 20,000 professionals and become a springboard for your corporate engagement and business opportunities. Each guest will frame their story in the areas of personal branding, business development, career development, financial empowerment, and technology innovation. Grant McGaw explains why he is the CEO and owner of his own professional career. Grant is an accomplished business leader and entrepreneur who wants to give back to individuals to grow their personal brand strategy. Tune in as he weaves his story about new possibilities, while to you exceed expectations. If you love storytelling, this show will make for fun.
This is so important. And this reminds me, and I want to ask this question as I think it through, because this happened in our society. And I think it's close to where you both live, the Nike Corporation, right? Nike Corporation. And what happened in the NFL a few years back with the San Francisco 49ers, Colin Kaepernick, right? And the whole kneeling, and there was a big melee, and everybody began, for or against. It was just a huge thing. And then Nike said, you know what, we're not going to support Colin Kaepernick. I think he had a deal with them at the time. We're not going to sell his jersey. We're not going to do anything like that. And then after a few months, I think, and I could be wrong, but it seemed like that, they came back to the table with a whole different like change in attitude. Hey, we're going to go ahead and support Colin Kaepernick, right? And we like what he's doing, and we're not going to pull his merchandise from our shelves. We're going to go ahead and go forward with that. And some part to me thinks that, to your point, profit had something to do with that, because, and I'll be very frank about this, 50-year-old white males that are probably on that stockholder board don't buy Nike shoes. They don't buy that type of merchandise. The younger generation, to your point, that are athletic, that are out there, they're doing their thing, they're the one that are consuming the product. They're consuming the services. They're consuming the brand. So what are you really saying? Like, hey, you know what? Just because that older generation may not agree with some of the things that were happening, the people that consume my services and my products, I need to serve them, and that's important to me. So I want to ask, and this to both of you, how do you feel about that?
So let me go. Is that okay, Shalini? So Colin Kaepernick's case is quite interesting, and I think you have your facts pretty well lined up, frankly. And so Nike's experience with social activism-based campaigns has been almost unconditionally positive in terms of bottom line. So Nike has taken up the causes for ageism, for gender equality, for LGBTQ equality and respect, and for Colin Kaepernick in specific, and that whole, the controversial campaign and so on and so forth. So there is data which shows every time Nike had a campaign of this sort, which was potentially polarizing, led to increased sales, increased profits, and increased market share. So probably, a cynic might say, oh, they're doing this to make money. They probably are. This corporation is a for-profit corporation, and good for them. They need to make money. Otherwise, if corporations don't make money, they don't survive. They are not competitive, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the economists will say that a corporation is owned by its shareholders. Therefore, shareholder value maximization is critical. And we understand that logic, and we are not dissing it at all. So the cynics might say that, but I think what we are saying is, if you can stick to a principle of treating each life with dignity and make money in the process, that's great. We are not saying you should compromise on your profit. We are saying, yeah, if you can do both, that's wonderful. But when the rubber hits the road, when it's trial, when it is, crunch time, that is when the character and integrity of the brand is revealed. And those moments are what we call really serious transgressions. And at that time, we encourage corporations put principle above profit. And Tylenol's example is really amazing, because they spent close to $300 million at today's prices in 1982, when the cyanide in Tylenol case happened, $300 million. with no sense of what will happen at the end of spending so much money. And James Burke fought tooth and nail with his shareholders saying, we need to do this. We have to protect the people. We have to protect the people. And about 6-7 months after the transgression, the share of the brand went from 37% to 48%. So yeah, we did not have an immediate sense of what will be the financial outcome, but the company profited from it at the end of the day. So we have an intuition in the book that principle above profit will see good outcomes for the company. So we think Nike is doing fine. I believe Colin Kaepernick's career got really hammered after that whole campaign, unfortunately. But I think Nike's strategy is consistent with its brand. They always do social activism-based campaigns. That is the association with the brand. And this was another one, which was pretty much what Nike did.
Interesting. Do you have any input on that, Shalini?
So I would say Nike is actually, again, a poster child of naming and shaming by the public. It was the first company to be called out in the 1990s, right? When informed and concerned citizens raised a voice against sweatshops. Now, Nike is not the only company on the planet that runs sweatshops, but Nike was targeted because it was the largest, most prominent, and well-known company on the planet. And Nike was consistently targeted for 20 years for its sweatshops till it transformed and became a gold standard in how it runs its supply chain and the conditions. So, and Nike is also a leader, as Shelly mentioned, in social activism. I would say Colin Kaepernick's case, everybody makes mistakes. They miscalculated, whatever that miscalculation was, but they regrouped. Maybe too late. It had its implications, but Nike actually has learned its lesson pretty well. And I think the fact that social activism is such an integral part of its branding suggests that it does seek to value principle over profit, to treat lives with dignity. Of course, you must remember that it's being held accountable for 700 suppliers in different parts of the world. And yes, it must use its economic influence to get better working conditions, but it doesn't have complete control to do so. But it is still, I think, considered a gold standard in how it has improved the working conditions of its supply chain.
Branding. Let's start with branding. You're a brander, right?
Yes.
This is, putting that iron stamp on the cattle so people know it's you. That's your cow, right?
Yeah.
Once that's done, you have to create broad awareness for that brand. And I mean broad awareness in terms of publicizing your good works, making yourself well known, having people have good relations and liking your brand, and changing the way people think about your products and services. I am the anti-PR Chief Strategist and Evangelist for Johto PR. Disruptors. We deal with disruptive, innovative tech companies to help them increase their share of voice, educate, become more creditable, and be able to compete against the behemoths, that they have better technology and are more agile and and a better cost for their clients. And it gives them that voice to be able to prove that so people trust them before they buy.
Ready to build a 5-star brand that stands out and captivates? Discover the art of crafting a strong and memorable brand identity. From choosing the right colors to making your brand unforgettable on social media, we guide you every step of the way. Learn how to design a brand that resonates deeply with your audience, ensuring they not only remember but love your brand. Whether it's enhancing visual appeal or mastering social platforms, we have got you covered. Dive into the world of impactful branding with us and see the difference. Follow the brand for more insights and expert tips. Don't just be seen, be remembered. Join us now. I like how both of you really very good insights into that. And what I learned from talking to both of you is that brands have a social responsibility, whether they realize it or not. It's not just responsibility to their shareholders, stakeholders, everyone else. You have a social responsibility for what you represent in the community. And if something does go wrong, that maybe it's not directly your fault, but yet you're implicated in this, you have the responsibility to get out in front of it. I think that's what I got out of this whole discussion. And before I leave both of you, I want to give each of you the mic and think about how, because you both are educated, and I want you to talk to us about the students that you have today and what their interests are and how they may be different from how it was 10, 20, 30 years ago, and what our business community should really understand from that. And I started with Shelly the first time. I'm going to go back to Shalini this time.
Oh, me first?
You're
Sure.
first.
So I've been teaching for about 10 years. And I think ours is one of the few business schools where ethics and social responsibility is a core course. And so it's a required course to get a degree. And what I teach my students through all of these case studies, and we do plenty of those, is that the current generation has been, I guess, insensitivity and lack of ethics is baked into normal functioning in business. And so there's almost a desensitization in business on social responsibility or doing the right thing. And I have a wide range of students. So when we talk about a case, the first question that comes up is, okay, what was the drop in the stock price, right? And then how long did it take to recover? So, okay, that was a blip. Now the stock price is fine. So it's okay to do, whatever transgression that a company may have done. And the other range, increasingly I'm finding, is that students actually appreciate this discussion. They want it earlier on in the degree. They would like it incorporated in almost, every course, so that they can think not only of ethics and social responsibility in my course, but in marketing and accounting and finance and IT and operations, because this applies everywhere. But it's not discussed as extensively, perhaps. And I think that would be a service that we can provide all our future leaders, future business leaders in particular, so that they at least start to look through this lens. Because unless you're aware of it, and if the only lens that you're being provided or being offered is that of the profit lens, then decision making gets skewed in that direction. And then we begin to maybe cut corners when we are in a bind.
I agree. This is important. Shelley, I'd like to get your perspective.
I really don't have anything to add because I think what Shalini said is perfectly mirrors my experience as well. The only wrinkle that I'd like to add is that I have taught at multiple business schools, starting with University of Rochester, then Cornell, Indiana, and now at University of Washington. So I see some differences in terms of the pedagogical lens that is used in the MBA programs at these schools. So Rochester Simon School is a very economics heavy school. So they want to inculcate in students everything from an economics lens. Indiana University is a lot more balanced, while Foster School has also a strong economics focus, but it also tries pretty hard to balance. So my sense is that schools, my experience is schools which are deeply into the economics mindset, right? And nothing is right or wrong about it. I'm not making any judgment about it. They are, in my limited experience, the profit maximizing principle-led schools. And when I did a class, I remember in Rochester on ethics and marketing, or lack of it sometimes, and I took students pretty much head on in class for about 45 minutes. I was just asking them questions. Okay, suppose your profits are hurting, but here is another alternative. Some people are hurting. Which one will you choose? And it was an aha moment for the entire class. I could see how their eyes were sparkling, and they had never thought about these issues. And another experience I've had, which is at Foster School, is that if I bring ethical questions in class, sometimes the students push back, and just like Shalini's, experience. And the reason they push back is because I think they think ethical decision-making is going to compromise profit. That's their fundamental lens through which they come. And so I've been reading papers which show that when companies follow ethical principles, they become more sustainable, they become more CSR oriented, there's more diversity in the organization, and so on and so forth. They achieve better financial outcomes. Because what I tell myself is, if I keep pushing, you need to think social, from a societal welfare viewpoint, I'm not making a lot of headway. Because there is deep ingrainment, as Shalini said, of this profit. But when I bring in this perspective, if you do good, you will be better off financially. That seems to resonate, and that seems to bring both the perspectives together so that they are not in conflict with each other. Though Shalini takes, what she shared with me is that she takes it head on, and which is really cool. And her experience is that students really like that challenge, So that's my experience, Grant. And I think the needle has moved to some extent where today's students are a lot more conscious and sensitive about CSR, about ethics, about sustainability, about diversity, and so on and so forth. But, we'll see what happens in the next 5-10 years and how the world evolves. It's a interesting time we are living in.
It is, because the next generation has to take their stage and their mindset, their experience is going to be different from those who lead now because of their upbringing and what they've been exposed to. So it's interesting to understand what they're sensitive to and what they're desensitized to and where that all comes in. But I'm so glad we have to have the voice to let them know, the results of different mindsets and what that looked like. You gave us great examples of if you were in case Boeing and it took you months to rather get in front of this, and what's the results, right? Or case in point, now we're looking at what Nike has done. And then you're like, hey, this is how they handled that situation. So you're giving us some great case studies to take a look at these certain things and understanding that profit is always good. You have to have that, but it's not the goal. What is your goal as a business? Accumulating, this is my viewpoint, accumulating a bunch of wealth, great, right? But if you're on a private island, what good is that, right? Those resources won't help you. But if you are doing something that has a great impact in the world, and oh, by the way, we all get enriched from that, I think that's a good thing. So we need to keep that focus of what we're doing and why we're doing it. What's the passion behind it? And then do something that's great. You two are doing a great service of educating our young people who are going to take on leadership roles. And then from their lens, they're going to have to make decisions. And I really like this. So let us know how to get a hold of your book. And if you're going to do any book signings or you're going to do any talks or anything like that, let us know about that so our audience can engage.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's available on Amazon already. It has been launched. And we will keep you posted on any book signings that we do.
I know this sounds like a pitch, but Grant, I will send you on LinkedIn a publisher's code which gives the buyer 50% off. I just wanted to let you know they're promoting the book quite heavily. So I will send you that code on LinkedIn and you're free to use it yourself or anybody else, whoever you want to send it. It's free to use. But the only thing is, of course, in US, we don't have to worry about, but internationally, I've sent it to a lot of people. If they can't deal in euro and dollar currencies, then they can't use it. But otherwise, I'll send you that code for what it's worth.
Give us the name of the book again. I know people are out there like, I got to Google it now.
Shari, do you have a visual?
Okay, I'll try to show you that. Yeah, sure.
It's called Brand Transgression Management, 8 Principles.
Managing Brand Transgressions.
There you go.
8 principles to transform your brand. And Grant, if you send me your address, we have a small publicity company which is helping us, who got us this podcast. We will request them to send you a complimentary copy. And we would love for you to read it and send feedback, because we know that some people will be challenged by the principles that we are promulgating there, for sure. And that's good.
That's good. That's good. We want challenge. We can't keep doing the status quo. Yeah. There's a reason, there's a passion behind why you wrote this book and what you feel will be impactful as the people move forward, they consume the information and can do different things. I want to thank both of you for being on Follow the Brand. This is wonderful. This is what this is all about. Your entire audience, they can tune into all the episodes. They're very similar to this. There's about 180 episodes of many different topics with great people like the James who just told us a lot of different great things. And I really, really appreciate that. And they can go to www.5starbdm. That is B for brand, D for development, and for masters.com. I want to thank you both again for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Grant. Pleasure.
Thank you, Grant. Thank you, Grant. More success to you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Man, who's your favorite podcaster? Man, Grant, man. I love Grant's podcast. Well, who's Grant? I'm going to send you the link. I love Grant.
Tune in for our next show or click on our website at www.5starbdm/followthebrandtv. Thank you.